Welcome to the ITC561 exam guidance. What I want to do today is just give you some quick guidance for the exam and what to expect. So, as we know, at the end of the session, there's very little time for formal revision. So you've really got to start to revise what you do as you go along. So you need to know what to expect from the exam. The sample exam is up on Interact at the moment, and you can do that. It's an online sample exam, so you can work through that to see what type of questions will be there. If you're unsure about anything, please put a question on the forum or contact your lecturer. Remember, repetition is the key to really remembering your topic and your content. So try and revise this fairly often and in a variety of different ways, because that will help to reinforce your memory and make it easier for you when you get to the exam. So once you've studied and you think you know the practice material, try practicing it under test conditions. So try that online sample exam and see if you can finish it in the allotted time. Now, the allotted time for these exams at the moment is 2 hours for the exam, plus 10 minutes for reading time, plus 15 minutes technology time, right? So that gives you a total time of 2 hours, 25 minutes. So that's the time you've got to work with. Remember to check your exam timetable carefully and make sure you know when your exams are taking place, because misreading the exam timetable will not be regarded as extenuating circumstances if you miss the exam or are late to turn up to it. So the exam consists of 3 sections, total of 23 questions. In section 1, there's a mixture of 10 multiple choice, true or false or fill in the blank questions. They're worth 1 mark each, and you'll need to write in the appropriate word to complete the statement in your answer. Okay, so it's a fairly straightforward thing. These are random. There's a large pool that draws random questions for everybody. So you know, it's kind of interesting. You're not going to be sure what you're going to get there. Section 2 is a series of 8 short answer questions. Now these are worth 5 marks each and give you a total of 40 marks. So each of these questions will ask you to explain a concept in cloud computing or discuss an issue or an approach. And each of those questions will require you to write at least a paragraph, perhaps 2, maybe 3, to show that you understand it and can explain the concept or the issue being discussed. Okay, so a short answer, you need to discuss it, explain it in a paragraph or 2. Okay, it's fairly straightforward. The third section is a section which has 5 questions, each of which you need to read carefully. Right? Each question poses a case study type problem that requires you to assess the problem and then apply your knowledge of cloud computing to the problem that's posed in that question. Now, the thing is with this, each of these questions may not be related to the other questions, so you don't have a case study that everything relates to. Each is a separate standalone question and can be related to any number of different possible case studies. So to answer these questions, you need to write a number of paragraphs in order to explain how you would resolve the problem that is posed. Okay, so each question here is now worth 10 marks, and this section is worth 50 marks in total. So we're looking at these questions, and these are these section 3 questions, and the questions that people tend to find issues with. This is a general approach we used for case study questions, and it applies to each of these questions. So you read the case study problem that you've got there, and then the question that you have to answer it. Highlight to yourself any main points or issues, and this is where it's sometimes handy to have a piece of paper there to write that down. As you read each question, make sure you know what is it you need to do here, and then what parts of that case study are relevant to the bits you need to do. Then you use your knowledge to decide how to answer each question and how to apply the information from the case study. Plan your answer, use the case study information, then start to write. Highly recommend you do a little bit of planning on these before you start writing, because it will make it that much easier for you. So the exam strategy I would use is read through the whole exam first, carefully read the instructions. Right? We often find as we're marking exams that students quite often know how to solve the problem, but they misinterpret the question or completely run off at a tangent. So make sure you understand what it is you've got to do. Organise your time effectively. So allocate time for each question. If you know, for example, section 3 is worth 50 marks, which is half the marks in the exam, then make sure you give it at least half of the time you've got available, which means you now cut down on the time for the other questions. And always try to leave yourself a bit of time at the end, at least 5 minutes, to go over everything and see if you've answered everything properly, or maybe you can add something into it. I would highly suggest that you, or highly recommend actually, that you would answer the full number of questions. Even if you look at a question and think, I don't know anything about this, you might get some marks by making some sensible comments around it. Remember, if you don't answer the question, you get 0 marks for it. So try and at least put some sensible comments there that may get you a mark or 2, and that could help in the long run. And as I said, always leave a little bit of time to review your answers before you submit the exam. So the exam's online this session, so it changes the way in which we actually approach the exam. So it'll be available in the ITC561 Interact site under the heading Online Exam, and becomes accessible at the time of that exam. Please don't attempt to do this on a mobile phone or a tablet for the exam. They do not support the exam correctly, and you will have issues. So it needs to be on a desktop PC. Now, the time allocated for the exam is 2 hours writing time plus 10 minutes reading time plus 15 minutes technology allowance. And that's to give you a bit of extra time in dealing with the medium. You don't need to use the reading time just for reading. You can write for the entire time. However, it's your responsibility to submit on time. There is a timer at the top which will tell you how much time you have left. And a late submission can attract very heavy penalties. The question types, as I've indicated before, we're using a multiple choice, true, false, or fill in the blank questions in section 1, short answer questions in section 2, and the essay style, that is the longer answer questions, in section 3. The answers for these questions are typed directly into the 561 exam, and this is the same format as you've seen in the sample exam. There is no requirement for you to upload files or drawings, so that's fine. There is also cut and paste is disabled, so you won't be able to cut and paste things from other sites into your answers. If you have any technical difficulties during the exam, the specialised tech support there is available. So I'd suggest you make a note of that link, possibly have it up in a browser ready to go in case something goes wrong. Right? It's no good trying to contact me or any of your lecturers. You need to talk to the technical support people. You can't ask content-related questions during the exam. Remember, you will be invigilated. There will be somebody looking at you to see what's happening. If you have a misadventure during the exam, something happens, take a screenshot where possible, and then try to get back to the exam as quickly as you can from where you left off. At the end of the exam, then you can submit an application for special consideration, and they will be reviewed by me immediately afterwards. You shouldn't try to message your lecturers or subject coordinator during the exam. So that sample exam is now online. It's been online for a few weeks now. You should, if you haven't tried it, you should now go and have a look at it, work your way through it, see how it works. Remember also, academic integrity is important, and there will be a number of checks used to look out for academic misconduct during the exam. So all the written answers, for example, will be processed through Turnitin to look for similarities to web resources, etc. Your IP addresses will be recorded to detect any possibilities of collusion or impersonation. And if something is suspected, you may well be interviewed to explain why you answered questions in certain ways. So I'd just remind you that the penalties for academic misconduct are quite severe, but also there are people who make money from academic misconduct and providing resources for people to do it, and they do resort to blackmail in order to get more money from their victims. So I would suggest this is not an appropriate approach. And finally, don't panic. You probably remember more and know more than you're going to give yourself credit for. So that's the common thing in exams. You panic and you freeze, relax, try and think through things because you probably do know it. So think and plan your answers first, then write it. And finally, good luck. I know it's not an enjoyable thing, an exam, but it's the end of this subject, and I hope that you do well. So all the very best.